What if I told you the U.S. Navy has just stopped another ship linked to Iran, and this is happening at a time when the entire region is already standing on a knife's edge? Because this is not some random sea incident. According to the latest reports, U.S. forces boarded a tanker called MT Tifani in the Bay of Bengal on April 21st, 2026, saying it was involved in smuggling Iranian crude oil. The Pentagon says the ship was treated as effectively stateless, and the operation happened without major resistance. But that's not even the full story. Just days earlier, the U.S. also seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship called the Touska near the Strait of Hormuz, calling it part of its maritime pressure campaign against Iran. Iran reacted angrily and demanded the ship's release. So now the big question is obvious. Is this the beginning of a much bigger war? Let's slow down for a second. This is happening during an extremely fragile U.S.-Iran ceasefire environment. Reports say the ceasefire is shaky, unclear in legal terms, and both sides seem to be interpreting it very differently. The U.S. appears to believe it can continue maritime enforcement and sanctions pressure. Iran sees these ship seizures as provocation and a violation. And then things got even more dangerous. On April 22, 2026, two ships were reportedly attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical shipping routes. That matters because roughly a fifth of the world's oil and gas flows through that area, so even a limited naval escalation there can hit global energy prices and shake markets worldwide. So no, this is not just about one ship. This is about pressure, it's about control. And it's about a region where even one aggressive move at sea can spiral into something much bigger. Now here's where it gets serious. When the U.S. Navy stops or boards a vessel tied to Iran, it sends two messages at once. First, Washington is showing that it still wants to control the maritime battlefield, not just the air or diplomatic space. Second, it's testing how far Iran can be pushed before Iran responds directly. And Iran has its own reason to react. From Tehran's point of view, these aren't just enforcement operations. They look like humiliation, economic strangulation, and a direct challenge to sovereignty. That's why Iranian officials are now refusing talks under pressure and saying negotiations can't move forward while this kind of action continues. So, are we heading into war? Maybe not full-scale war tonight, but the risk is clearly rising. Right now, this looks less like an immediate declaration of war and more like controlled escalation. The kind where both sides push, test, warn, and retaliate without officially crossing the final line. But history shows that these situations become dangerous when one side miscalculates, one ship is hit harder than expected, or one crew member dies and suddenly the politics change overnight. That is how real wars begin, not always with speeches, not always with headlines. Sometimes they begin with one ship, one seizure, one limited action that goes too far. And that's why this story matters far beyond the Middle East. Because if the U.S. and Iran slide from maritime confrontation into open conflict, the consequences won't stay local. Oil prices, shipping routes, global trade, military alliances, and even inflation around the world could feel the impact. Reports already show shipping disruptions and higher oil prices as tensions keep building. So here's the real answer. Is this the start of war? Not necessarily. Is it the kind of moment that can trigger one? Absolutely yes. Because once ships start getting seized, attacked, and used as pressure points during a fragile ceasefire, the sea stops being just a route for trade. It becomes the front line. And right now, that front line is getting hotter. What do you think? Is this strategic pressure, or are we watching the opening moves of a much bigger conflict?